Good evening. My name is Julius James, and this is another episode of A Knock at Midnight. We'd like to welcome you. This evening, we'll be dealing with solutions to what's coming up this summer in terms of what to expect, employment for youth, prevention efforts towards youth this summer to try to keep them in a safer state of mind and a safer environment this summer with all the changes that are taking place. And in that, we'll be approaching that from a specific model that we'll get into a little later. Right now, what we like to do is just deal with a taste of some of the things that are taking place, starting with the fact that this past weekend, 41 people died. 41 people. Those are 41 police reports, 41 funerals, 41 families. Like that 41 reaches a lot of different ways simultaneously. Could it have been avoided? Possibly. Could something have been done? Possibly. What is done, we have to move on in a more positive state of mind if we, intend to function in a more functional way. With that, specifically directed at youth, we're going to introduce some programs that are taking place in Inglewood currently, or will be taking place in Inglewood in the upcoming days, one of which is a Take It to the Streets peace rally. That'll be taking place within the next month or so. If you have questions about that, you can contact 773-488-6601. Again, that number is 773-488-6601. That number is to the Inglewood portal, and that website is inglewoodportal.org. Again, that's inglewoodportal.org. If you have questions about the Taking It to the Streets peace rally as well, there is a slew of digital or cyber literacy programs taking place this summer for youth, and all they have to do is apply and reap the benefits of those efforts as well. Most importantly, there are jobs and employment opportunities specifically designated for youth in the area of technological literacy, which you can also find on the same website, inglewoodportal.org. And the address for those who are interested and may not have access to a phone or the internet is 815 West 63rd Street. Again, that address is 815 West 63rd Street. For the last time, that number is 773-488-6601. Now, that's important because over the course of the last two episodes, we dealt with some of the hazards that have been taking place with the changes in the city, whereas in this case, we'll be dealing with more functional solutions. So with that, the need for you all having that contact information is most important. Do not hesitate to call. Do not hesitate to contact. There are no further questions that need to be answered in that regard. Employment, help, assistance, outlet is available for you, and those are just a few. What I found to be most interesting is if you actually went online and Googled, or even just use any search engine for that matter, youth summer programs in Inglewood, Chicago, what you find is over 3 million results. That's 3 million possible outlets, 3 million different possible forms of service, 3 million different opportunities to save yourself from the possibility of being harmed or even possibly killed this summer if you know you live in a dangerous area in Chicago. That's very, very important. We try to focus specifically on Inglewood because that is our primary focus area. That's our primary service area in Inglewood. That's where we're stationed. So we try to make sure that they get the information because it's not always easy in doing that. Now, when we think about the idea of violence and the things that come along with it, what we find is that idea is no different than any other idea. And that idea, like any other idea, comes along with a plan in one way, shape, form, or another. It also goes through a process till it executes its goal, which is harming or taking the life of, the intended or unintended target. But what if, instead of violence being the idea, now that we know violence is something driven primarily by the human drive of emotion. What if we replace the idea of violence with anything you can fill the blank in that is positive for yourself? And you say your idea is employment. You say your idea is continuing your education. You say your idea is exposing yourself to some of the other cultures or events or activities or opportunities in this city. That idea is very tangible, but that idea is only as tangible as the plan you create for it. In creating your plan, you start to give shape and form to a possibly shapeless or formless idea that only exists in your head. By giving it a plan, you are now creating a link from your mind or your thoughts into actual physical real-time reality. But if you never come up with a plan, it just sits there in your head, and then something else comes, bumps it out the way, moves it down on the queue. You forget about it. You're in a moment of inspiration. You can't recapture it. It can seem as if the idea of change or escaping a violent situation or a violent environment is virtually impossible or pointless, when in fact it is not. However, sticking to your plan is called the process. And in order to stick to your plan, you have to stick to your process. You cannot deviate. How often do we find ourselves saying we want to go back to school? And in the process of pursuing that, what we find is bills don't stop. Drama does not stop. Issues with people in the neighborhood do not stop. Issues with your past do not stop. However, you have to drive on. You have to push forward. You have to maintain your unwillingness to give up so that you can stick to your plan, because when you came up with your idea, you already saw the goal manifest in your mind. But to see it manifest in your hand, you have to stick to it. There is no idea that is too great. There's no idea that is too small. The only thing that is great or small or significant or insignificant is the amount of will you apply and maintain to reach that goal. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns around this issue that we're dealing with right now, feel free to call in live at 312-738-1060. Again, that number is 312-738-1060. If you are interested in more programs that exist in Inglewood and the Chicagoland area, please feel free to contact our office at 773-488-2960. Again, that number is 773-488-2960. It is imperative that we tune in and participate in what is going on, because right now participation identifies supply and demand. It identifies if the things that are available are even needed. Sometimes, in fact, most times, it's been my observation that resources are available to people. However, there is a lack of knowledge. There is a lack of awareness. There's a lack of access to the information. But along with that lack of access, you'll find most times there is a certain degree of will or lack thereof that prohibits people from identifying or coming in touch with those resources. So if we go back and we look at this again, idea, plan, process, goal, what we find is that between these, the three that are necessary to bring about the fourth is the idea, plan, and process. Mathematically, that's 33% apiece. 33%. Depending on the number that percentage references, it may be something, it may be nothing. However, if we look at it in real time and in reality, 33% of anything is unacceptable when you could have 100%. 66% of anything is arguable when you could have 100%. If I owed you money, would you accept 33%? 66%? In schools, 33% is not passing. It is not barely passing. It is failing. 66% is failing. 99% or higher is an undeniable pass. Somewhere in between that, we get hung up on technicalities between 66 and 99. Oh, I got a D. D is passing. At least I showed up. I'll pass if I just do the homework assignments. There are an infinite number of ways we find to excuse our ability to accept mediocrity in the form of less than 99%. The question that would probably be asked in looking at this, though, is where does the other percent go? If the height is 99% between an idea, a plan, a process to reach a goal, then where does the other 1% go? Well, the answer for that is quite simple. That 1% goes to the margin of error, that margin of error that increases every time we allow ourselves to give up on an idea. When an idea fails, that just shows you one way how not to do it, which means that there is more ways, or there are more ways available to you to get it done. You just learned one way not to, which makes you an expert in the field. The more you stick with it, the more you keep at it, and the more you refuse to give up. Now, when you break that down, 33% is an idea. That's fine, but if we take away the plan, and if we take away the process, like we already discovered, nothing happens. Well, what if we say, okay, well, I'm good at coming up with ideas and I'm good at making plans, but we never stick to the process. We always get talked out of it. We always spend money intended for one priority for something else that came up unexpectedly that wasn't in the plan. We deviate from our schedules. We do things that we originally did not plan to do. Well, you're not sticking to the process. So now that remaining 33% that should have been dedicated to sticking to the process has now been added to that 1% of error, which has now made your percentage of error 34%. So you have to have all three. It's very important. There is no aspect of it that is less important. They are all equally vital and viable and usable and necessary, and reaching your goal becomes that much more difficult every time we attempt to alienate, discard, or delete one of those processes with some form of justification. It's not functional. It's not how it works. If you take that idea and you apply it to something practical, something that exists currently that you know, the automobile, skyscrapers, these things were just ideas in people's minds. And from an idea, they drew up a plan called a schematic. They got some paper, they got a pen, they got a pencil. They started to give scale, dimension, form, color, texture to this idea. They started to reach out to other people so that they could bring this idea to fruition. And then they stuck to the process. And lo and behold, it was there. This is not a difficult thing to do. We do it for less important things when we want to waste time, because we may not believe in ourselves enough to reach a successful, viable, functional goal. We may want to go party. When it comes to a party, we know that's the idea. We come up with a plan called how we're going to get there, what we're going to wear, who we're going to go with, who's going to be there. We take all these things into account. Am I going to eat before I leave? You know yourself, and most people have at some point gone to an event classified as a party. Then we stick to that process. We stick to it. We do exactly what we intended to do, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we make it to the goal, in this case, or in this example rather, being a party. The question is, why can't we do that for something way more functional, way more beneficial than a party, or something of an equal or lesser value? When we apply this to the family and we say the idea is keeping the family together, how do we do that? What does that look like? Where do we begin? All these questions can inhibit you. It can develop what's called a paralysis of analysis, where you get so stuck in asking questions, you fail to take action. You get so stuck in watching TV, you fail to take action. You fail to call a phone number. You get so stuck in sitting in one place and not actually walking towards multiple places that may benefit you or expose you to your next level, that nothing happens. And seemingly that's just life. That's just the way it is. It is the way it is. We, again, make reasons to deal with that. But when it comes to youth violence, that idea is very real. That plan is unpredictable. What we know is we know very little, because if we knew what we thought we knew, that number would stay low. It wouldn't just be low here and there and then rise here and there. It's unpredictable because that's exactly what it is. But the only way to prevent it or increase the prevention effort towards it is awareness, education, the ability to see yourself and your own potential based on the questions you ask about yourself. But for every question that gets asked, you have to demand and be patient enough for an answer, even if it seemingly just comes from yourself. The question you should ask primarily is, what are you doing? What can you do to be better? Why are you not doing what you should be doing? These are questions that should motivate the self to move to the next level, because when challenged, human nature has some form of reflex. If a person falls, it is ideally already discovered that a person 9 times out of 10 will catch themselves. It is a reflex. They will do something. If hit, there will be a reflex. Doctors, when they go give you your physical, they hit you in the knee with the mallet. The leg moves. This is a reflex. This is something that naturally happens based on that interaction. Well, what happens naturally can also be altered based on your nature, and your nature is relative to environment. Environment is a direct reflection of what you either choose to put into it or what you refuse to put into it. It is just that simple. So we could choose to point in a circle at everyone except self, but in fact it is self. And in looking at the idea, plan, process, goal, approach to life, what we find is there is nothing that is not tangible. There is nothing that is not attainable. There is nothing that is not doable. All we must do is develop and maintain the will to do it. And again, if you have comments, questions, concerns, please feel free to call in at 312-738-1060. Again, that number is 312-738-1060. And if you're interested in services from A Knock at Midnight, including mentoring, computer literacy, employment, youth guidance, effective parenting, anger management, etc., please feel free to contact our office at 773-488-2960. Again, that number is 773-488-2960. Moving on, what we find is in children is where it usually develops, because as children, we have large-scaled ideas. If we went around and dealt with memory as children, usually from kindergarten up till around 5th, 6th grade, a guest speaker comes in or the teacher asks the question. At some point, the question is cast to the children: what do you want to be when you grow up? And at that phase in life as children, we don't see the limitation. We don't see the inhibition. We don't see the impossibility of a thing. All we are able to do is imagine the reality of what it is we dream to be. And it's not what we dream to act like. It's exactly that, what we dream to be. And in that, you have to maintain it. By the time we develop into our teens, most times we are knocked off course. We change our mind. We develop another idea, which is natural in the process of executing the idea. Sometimes you may look at an idea, when you get so far in your plan, you realize, hey, I need another idea. I need to improve upon my idea. Because if you stick to these processes, what happens is they identify how functional or dysfunctional they are. And you know if your idea is dysfunctional once you reach the goal of it. For example, let's say someone who's watching this broadcast right now knows they want service, knows they won't call in because that's just not what they do. Maybe they're just absorbing the information, but they want to know where they can go because they may not have a phone. You can come to our office at 400 West 76th Street, Suite 206 at A Knock at Midnight in the Stewart Business Center, and ask all the questions you need, receive all the literature you need, talk to someone directly, be assigned an advocate who works towards your best interest even when you may not be thinking about it at that moment. And again, that address is 400 West 76th Street, Suite 206, ran by Minister Johnny Banks Sr. and Ida Brown. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to call in and ask them or comment. Do we have any callers? Moving forward, when we think about the impact these things have on us from childhood to adulthood, what usually happens is the ideas stick less and the memories of pain or failure stick more. And those memories of failure or pain actually begin to corrode the possibility of positive thinking, because where we try to think of a good idea, we talk ourselves right out of it. I should pay this bill while I have the money right now. Oh no, I'll wait till the weekend is over. The weekend is over and that money's spent. Something came up, something you didn't plan on, something you didn't foresee, an emergency that happened that allowed you to have that money, and where you may have helped someone, even yourself. Even then, by the time the bill is actually due that you originally intended to pay, you've put yourself behind the 8 ball. There are ways around this. More functional thinking, sticking to your idea. If it's your idea, own it. Treat it like it's yours. You would not chop off your own finger or set yourself on fire unnecessarily, we want to assume. As such, why waste your idea? Your idea is important. The sooner you take action to bring it forth, the sooner you can see just how functional, how capable, how powerful, how deliberate you can be with the power of your own mind. And it is not limited to just going to a school and receiving a formal academic education. You can also receive trade education. You can also receive office education. You can also receive on-the-job education. Education comes in many forms. Education comes in general conversation. It all depends on the subject matter and how well people listen and how well people take the information that they obtain in those interactions and build upon them, think deeper on them, and move those propositions forward. We can look at people who decide they want to be carpenters, electricians, welders, things of that nature. In doing that, they make a lot of money. They develop a trade that is consistently useful as long as there are major metropolises in this planet, and they can do pretty well. And all they have to do is stick to their trade. We have a caller? Yes. Hello, caller. State your comment or question.
Hi. Pardon me?
No, I was saying state your comment or question.
Yes. As young man, I'm just turning up and down the dial, and it's just you must be I don't know fate or something, because I just started reading this book about 2 months ago called Think Yourself Rich. Use the power of your mind, subconscious mind, to find true wealth, by Joseph Murphy, PhD. And what you're saying is the same thing that this book, and I'm more than halfway through the book, by the way, but it's talking about how we spend many years of allowing people, such as our parents, to teach us their values. And when things don't work out for them, we adopt those negative values into our own lives. And so if we don't change what they've taught us, how are we going to, think for ourselves and move forward? And do positive things our own. So, for example, with me personally, I wanted this job. I worked hard. I studied the company, did all the right things. And in my mind, I thought I did the right things. And so I got in front of the two hiring managers. And by me not being confident and me thinking I was confident, it showed that I was not actually physically confident. Because my inner subconscious mind was not confident, because it's been taught to me that, well, if you don't get it, you don't deserve it. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
And it's weird that I'm watching you and I'm reading this book right now, and the book is pretty much saying that, think deep down in your subconscious and simply change your subconscious. And it's hard. It's really hard to see you, a young gentleman. You understand what it's all about at such a young age. I think you're doing a great thing by showing people of all ages right now on TV that you can change your subconscious mind and live your best life. And I want to say thank you.
Thank you for calling, sir. I wish you continued success in whatever it is you choose to endeavor on. That is evidence that I'm not making this up. This is not something I'm trying to sell for some type of gain. This is not about economics at all, except for the economics of your mind, the economics of communities that have been labeled or identified as low income or poor. And the reality is the idea of rich and poor begins and ends in the mind, because we get tax return checks regularly, annually, as people. One person can see that as a small amount of money. They may get something like $3,000 back and say, oh, well, that's small. I have to pay these bills and those bills. Another person sees an opportunity to create a business, and that $3,000 in 6 months becomes $30,000. And in 12 months, that $30,000 has turned into $120,000. It is all about how we choose to apply what we know to help develop how we will grow as a people. Unfortunately, this time goes by very, very, very fast, and before you know it, it's over. And unfortunately, we're at that juncture right now. Again, my name is Julius James, and if you're watching this broadcast right now and you're interested in helping reshape the face of communities in Chicago riddled with violence, poor economic structures, please feel free to come by a knock at midnight at 400 West 76th Street, Chicago, Illinois, Suite 206, or call our office at 773-4 773-488-2960. Again, that number is 773-488-2960. And that's a knock at midnight. I'd like to thank you for your time. God bless and good night.